Behind the smile, the untold pain that led to Yumenglong's final goodbye. There are smiles that heal, smiles that light up screens and hearts alike. And then there are smiles that hide storms too deep for the world to see. Yumenglong's smile was one of those. A radiant, effortless beam that could turn sorrow into warmth. It became a signature of his charm. A gift he offered freely to his fans, his colleagues, and the entire entertainment world. Yet, behind that glowing mask was a silence, a struggle so profound that it eventually consumed the man everyone thought was invincible. When the world learned of Yumenglong's passing, time seemed to pause. It wasn't just the loss of an actor or a singer. It was the loss of a soul that had quietly carried the pain of 1,000 unshed tears. His death left behind echoes that refused to fade, whispers of unanswered questions, and a haunting realization that even the brightest lights can burn silently until they flicker out. In the glittering world of fame, Yumenglong was a paradox, adored and yet achingly lonely, surrounded by applause yet feeling unseen. Friends and colleagues spoke of his gentle spirit, his unmatched work ethic, and his quiet presence that never demanded attention but always left an impression. He had a way of making others feel heard, even when his own voice trembled behind closed doors. But what the cameras never captured were the long nights of silence, the battles fought within, an exhaustion that came with constantly being the strong one. Fame, while dazzling, had its shadows, and Yumenglong was often caught between the light he offered the world and the darkness he carried within. He had always been the embodiment of calm. In interviews, his tone was measured, his words carefully chosen, his smile never faltering. But behind that composure was an ocean of suppressed emotions, grief, pressure, and a longing for something pure in a world built on perfection. Those closest to him later shared that he often withdrew for days, preferring solitude to social gatherings, finding solace only in his music or the quiet corners of his apartment. It was in those moments that he wrote songs filled with heartbreak and reflection, verses that, in hindsight, felt like a slow goodbye the world never saw coming. The entertainment industry is often painted as a dream, but for artists like Yumenglong, it was also a battlefield. Every smile, every word, every performance had to be flawless. The burden of expectations grew heavier with each passing year. He became a symbol of beauty, grace, and talent, but underneath, he was a man slowly losing himself to the pressure of maintaining perfection. He was loved by millions, yet few truly knew the man behind the fame. Behind that charming face were sleepless nights where he questioned everything: his worth, his happiness, his purpose. He had reached heights most could only dream of, yet it didn't fill the emptiness that lingered inside. To the world, Yumenglong was successful, but to himself he was fading, bit by bit, smile by smile. Close friends recalled how his laughter became softer over time, his eyes dimmer, his presence more fleeting. He often spoke about peace, not the worldly kind, but a quiet peace he seemed to be searching for endlessly. There were moments where he would stand by the window for hours, lost in thought, watching the city lights shimmer beneath him. No one knew what went through his mind in those silent hours, but perhaps those were the moments where he silently said his goodbyes, not to people, but to the life that no longer felt like his. On set, he was still professional, still kind, still smiling. No one suspected that each day was a fight he barely won. He carried his pain with such elegance that it became invisible. He never wanted to burden anyone. Perhaps that was his greatest strength and his greatest tragedy. There's something cruelly poetic about the way the world only truly listens when it's too late. After his passing, fans flooded social media with photos, videos, and messages, moments frozen in time where he was alive, laughing, glowing. They played his songs on repeat, each lyric now carrying the weight of loss. Many said they wished they had seen the signs, that they had looked beyond the smile. But how could they have known? He never allowed his pain to show. His final days, according to reports and those close to him, were quieter than usual. He distanced himself from work and social media, spending most of his time alone. Friends tried reaching out, but he reassured them he was fine, that he just needed rest. That word, rest, now feels hauntingly final. It was as if he was preparing himself and the world for an inevitable silence. What made YUMENGLONG special was not just his talent, but his heart. He poured love into everything he did, his performances, his interactions, his music. Yet the more love he gave, the less he seemed to save for himself. He was the kind of person who healed others while silently breaking, the kind who made sure everyone smiled, even when his own heart was heavy. His death didn't just shatter fans, it broke an illusion, the illusion that fame protects you from pain, that success equals happiness. It reminded the world that behind every perfect photo, every charming smile, there might be an untold story of struggle. As tributes poured in from across the world, one thing became clear. YUMENGLONG had touched lives in ways words couldn't express. Fans from different countries lit candles, shared artwork, and wrote letters filled with love and grief. Some spoke about how his dramas gave them hope during dark times. Others said his music helped them survive heartbreak. Ironically, the man who healed millions could not heal himself. His departure became more than a tragedy, it became a message. A reminder to look closer, to ask, "Are you okay?" and mean it. To understand that sometimes the people who seem the happiest are the ones who need love the most. The legacy YUMENGLONG left behind is not one of despair, but of compassion. His story has inspired countless people to speak up about mental health, to seek help, to check on their loved ones. Even in his absence, he continues to save lives, a bittersweet continuation of the love he always gave so freely. There's a haunting beauty in the way his memory lingers, in the songs that still play, the shows that still make people smile, the photos that capture his timeless grace. Every time someone watches his scene or hears his voice, it feels as though he's still here, whispering softly through the pain. Be kind, even when you're hurting. The world may never know the full story of what led to YUMENGLONG's final goodbye. Some things remain sacred, locked forever in the heart of the one who carried them. But what we do know is this: behind his smile was courage, behind his silence was love, and behind his final act was a peace he long sought but never found in life. The world remembers YUMENGLONG for his light, that warm, effortless smile that could disarm sadness itself. But behind that familiar glow was an untold pain that only deepened with time. To the world, he was flawless, a man who seemed to have everything: fame, beauty, talent, and love from millions. Yet those who looked closely could see it, the quiet distance in his eyes, the way his laughter sometimes ended too quickly, the weight in his voice when he said, "I'm fine." As the lights dimmed on his last performance, no one could have imagined that it would be his final curtain call, that the same man who once said, "I want to make people happy," was quietly slipping into silence. In every interview, every public appearance, YUMENGLONG mastered the art of being okay. But deep down, he was fighting a loneliness that even the loudest applause couldn't drown out. Those closest to him recalled that his final months were filled with haunting quietness. He began to write more, lines in notebooks that spoke of peace, of fading stars, and of the ache of being seen but not truly known. His apartment, once alive with music and light, became a haven of stillness. He stopped answering calls as often. He would sit by his piano for hours, pressing a few keys, letting melodies trail off mid-song, as if he couldn't find the strength to finish them. Sometimes he'd hum softly to himself, looking out the window as night draped over the city. The flickering lights reflected in his eyes, and for a moment he seemed lost between two worlds, the one he lived in and the one he longed to escape to. Friends who visited said he seemed peaceful but distant, smiling faintly as if already half gone. He looked like he was saying goodbye, one said. The entertainment industry didn't stop moving. It never does. But YUMENGLONG was slowing down, quietly withdrawing. He had achieved more than most could dream of, yet it never seemed to fill the growing emptiness inside. The fame that once brought him purpose began to feel like a cage. Every time he stepped into the spotlight, he gave a piece of himself away, until there was barely anything left to give. There was a quiet fragility about him, a gentleness that made people feel safe, even when he wasn't. He carried everyone's emotions like they were his own. He was the listener, the comforter, the one who always smiled when others couldn't. But behind that generosity was exhaustion, the kind that doesn't come from work, but from carrying too many hearts while forgetting to care for your own. One evening, a close friend found him sitting alone in the dark, listening to an old recording of his own song. When asked why he was sitting without the lights, he simply said, "The dark feels honest." It was a chilling response, one that now echoes with unbearable sorrow. Perhaps that was his truth all along. The darkness was the only place that didn't expect him to smile. As time went on, he began leaving subtle traces, unfinished lyrics, messages that sounded like farewells, photos with quiet captions about peace, love, and time. At the time, no one paid much attention. Now, each word feels like a soft whisper of what he couldn't say aloud. One of the most painful memories shared by his colleagues came from the set of what would be his last drama. On that day, Yumenglong had delivered one of his most emotional scenes, a heartbreaking goodbye between two lovers. The director said that after the final take, the entire set was silent. His tears were real. His voice cracked with something deeper than the character's pain. After the camera stopped rolling, he walked away quietly, wiped his face, and smiled at everyone. No one knew those tears were his own. Behind that final performance was a man who had poured his last strength into his art. It wasn't just acting. It was confession through character, emotion through fiction. And when the curtain fell, it felt as if he had given all he had left to give. The day before his death, he reportedly visited a small cafe he loved, the same one he used to write lyrics in before fame found him. He sat in his favorite corner, ordered tea, and left a note on a napkin. It simply said, "Thank you for the warmth." The staff kept it, not realizing it would be his last written words in public. That simple message now holds the weight of an entire life, gratitude from a soul that was preparing to rest. After the news broke, the world trembled. Social media became a sea of tears and disbelief. Fans refused to accept it, hoping it was another rumor. Hashtags filled timelines. Hashtag YUMENGLONGFOREVER, hashtag BEHINDTHESMILE, hashtag RESTINPEACEYUMENGLONG. The silence that followed was unbearable, a silence too heavy for those who once found joy in his voice. Xiaozhan, his close friend and co-star, was seen in tears at a private gathering held in Yu's memory. Witnesses said he couldn't speak for several minutes, just stood before a photo of Yumenglong, trembling, eyes red with grief. He whispered something no one could hear, but those present said it was the kind of cry that breaks even the strongest hearts. Their friendship had been quiet but deep, a bond formed through mutual respect and unspoken understanding. Losing you felt like losing a part of himself. The candlelight vigil that followed was both beautiful and haunting. Thousands gathered, holding pictures, flowers, and glow sticks, singing softly to his songs. The air was thick with grief, yet tender with love. A fan said, "He gave us light when he had none left for himself." That sentence summed up his life, a giver until the end. Even now, weeks after his passing, his voice lingers like a ghost in the wind. His dramas trend again. His music climbs charts anew, a cruel reminder that sometimes we only celebrate people fully after they're gone. But maybe that's what Yumenglong wanted. Not fame, not pity, but to be remembered for the love he left behind. Some say the world doesn't deserve souls as soft as his. Maybe they're right. Because Yumenglong was more than a celebrity. He was a reflection of quiet strength, hidden battles, and the beauty of imperfection. His death broke hearts, but his life taught compassion, that even in the face of pain, one can still choose kindness. And so, the story of Yumenglong doesn't end with his death. It continues in every smile he inspired, in every song that still echoes his gentle soul. It continues in the countless people who now look deeper, who no longer mistake a smile for happiness, who ask, "Are you really?" and mean it. Behind that unforgettable smile was a man who gave light to a world that didn't always give it back. And even though his journey ended too soon, his spirit remains, glowing softly in the hearts of those who loved him, whispering forever through time. Don't forget to love yourself, even when it hurts. Yumenglong's story will never fade, because some goodbyes are not endings. They're reminders of love so deep it lives on even in silence.